Facing questions over potential conflicts of interest, actress Lori Loughlin and her husband leaving a Boston courtroom just moments ago after a hearing in the college admissions scandal. Fox News' Molly Line outside the courthouse right now. Molly, what's the latest?
Well, Deirdre, clearly this couple wanted to present a united front. Lori Loughlin and her husband, Mossimo Giannulli, holding hands upon arrival and exit from the courthouse today, sitting side by side before the judge today in federal court. As you mentioned, this was all about a conflict of interest. This was a hearing that essentially was all about the fact that they share some of the same attorneys, though each also retains separate counsel. Now, several potential pitfalls were explored during the course of this hearing, seemingly of the greatest concern to prosecutors, and the judge, Giannulli, has hired lawyers from a smaller firm that also has lawyers that represent another one of the defendants involved in this case, Davina Isaacson. Now, she is a parent that has pled guilty, and prosecutors warned that she could ultimately testify against Giannulli or other parents involved in this case, though who knows how the case will be proceeding from here, which was the key concern. Now, she is also alleged to have used, through the mastermind of the scheme, to have paid to get her daughters into USC, the University of Southern California. That is the school that Loughlin and Giannulli are also accused of essentially going through the mastermind of the scheme to get their daughters in. Loughlin and Giannulli are accused of paying some $500,000 to bribe coaches, administrators, ultimately through the mastermind to achieve that goal. The couple signed waivers today and affirmed their desire to continue to share a legal team. It's worth noting that they are facing, if convicted on the charges, 40 years in prison each, and they are among defendants choosing to go forward, not pleading guilty at this point in the case, although many others have decided to do so. Deirdre?
Molly, thanks so much. Molly Line there for us in Boston.
All right, here now is the attorney, Whitney Boan, to talk a little bit more about this. Whitney, good to see you. We haven't talked about this story as much, since when it first broke. It felt like we were all over it, but now we have this particular hearing that Molly describes. Is all kind of normal to you, this conflict of interest type of stuff, where if the husband and wife have the same lawyer, maybe they might want to think twice about that in case they, I guess, don't agree, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's normal in situations where you're going to have a criminal defense attorney and you have co-defendants, especially if it's a husband and wife, that they would have separate counsel, which is, as Molly mentioned, they do have different counsel here, but they also both have the same counsel in addition to their separate counsel, who I believe is their lead counsel in each of their cases. So it's not overwhelmingly common that this would happen, but it is common that when this is a situation that occurs, that a court is going to look into it and make sure that they understand the risks that they're taking in terms of having representation that they share with each other, as well as representation that is shared with witnesses in the case or victims, as it may be, in terms of the University of Southern California.
Right, and then the potential for litigation between Lori Loughlin and her husband and USC and the school where her daughters were going, that exists, so that's another potential conflict that's been talked about. I think the big picture story, though, here that still remains very, very interesting is the decision that they've made to go to trial. And they're not the only ones, but they're probably the most high profile. Felicity Huffman cut the deal, Lori Loughlin and their husband. A rough day, by the way, if you're looking at the video, to be a photographer up in that case, especially if you're backpedaling, as the case may be. But Lori Loughlin and their husband, they go to trial, right? And now that's a huge risk, because you could have cut a deal and got off, pretty much with a slap on the wrist, right?
Well, yes, and obviously they have a constitutional right to go to trial. And what we all need to keep in mind is that even though they were indicted, and even though there's been some information that's been released in terms of what the government expects to be able to prove, that doesn't mean the same thing as them being able to prove it. And sometimes pleading isn't worth the risk in terms of maybe what the pitfalls are of going to trial, but it's worth the risk of doing it because those pitfalls aren't enough that outweigh the benefits of potentially going to trial and prevailing. So while a lot of people do plea, and while the government certainly is notorious, the federal government, for cherry picking their cases for prosecution in terms of who they choose to prosecute or not, there is still time. Lori Loughlin and her husband may still plea.
There could be a deal to be
technically, they still have time. Yeah, absolutely.
So there are 51 defendants, I believe, and in this whole, scandal, whatever you want to call it, 28 as of now would go to trial. They haven't cut a deal, whereas 23 have. So it's fairly split, which is interesting. What type of conversation might you be having, or have you seen in the past with clients, defendants that find themselves in that type of a decision? What goes into the call?
Well, what goes into the call is after the government has provided what's called discovery. In other words, reports and information about evidence they would intend to introduce at trial. You go over all of that with the law that's going to be applied, and also the optics in terms of practically what a jury might think looking at this evidence. It's not just as simple as, does this meet the legal criteria or not? It's what is this going to look like to a jury in a big picture sort of way. And then it becomes about the evaluation of the risks and the benefits, and then it's each client's individual decision. So I've certainly had clients who I'm like begging not to plea because I think the case against them is so weak, but it's their decision. And if they want to go to trial or if they want to plea, ultimately at the end of the day, it's their lives and they get to make those decisions with the advice of counsel.
Of course, we don't know what the behind the scenes are here, but we'll continue to watch. This is a high profile case. Whitney Boan, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you. Okay. Thanks.